goes back a couple of years ago. It was September of 2009 or 2010. 2009 it would have been. A pastor from St. Louis called. And I want you to know, I love Doug Jones. He is a wonderful man. There's just something about Lord. We have a lot of fun going back and forth together. A pastor from St. Louis called and said, I'm having Doug in, and I'd like to get him. And do you have any ideas? Well, in order to have an idea, you have to know what you have to work with. And he said, so I said, what do you have to work with? And he says, well, I do have a policeman in my church. And I said, I don't need anything more than that. So I said, let me get back with you. And I got, Phil Anglin, the photographer at Raymond's been there, forever. And Phil Anglin, I got a hold of him and I said, could you make me, Phil, I want an FBI wanted poster. And I said, I want it to look like Doug, but not exactly like Doug. And I said, I want the name to be like Doug's, but not exactly Doug's. I want it to be an easy mistaken identity thing. And so long story short, we got an FBI wanted poster for Darrell E. Jones instead of Douglas E. Jones. And we used, with Photoshop, you can do anything to any picture now. And so Phil took Doug's nose, cheeks, and eyes, and then he took David Beebe's head, and then took Tad Gregorich, the current dean of Rhema, his mouth and chin. So it looked like Doug, but not exactly like Doug. And so we had an FBI wanted poster for all these, horrific crimes. And one of the things we did, you all knew Doug had a golfing accident a few years ago where he hit the golf ball. It hit one of the markers and came back and popped him here. And he's got a little scar there. Yes. It could have been serious, hit him in the eye, but he's just got a little scar there. So on the FBI wanted poster, we had two identifying marks. One was a scar under the left eye, and the other was a skull and crossbones tattoo on the right hip. And so, long story short, we had this all orchestrated out. When Doug got pulled over by the policeman, the policeman was acting very serious because, after all, this appears to be an FBI fugitive. And so the policeman reached the point where he didn't know what to do, so he had to call his captain on the cell phone. Well, that call came to me. And so I did my best, put on a different voice and all that. And so finally the officer said, here, my captain wants to talk to you. And so I get on the phone, trying to do a cop voice, and I said to Doug, I said, well, my officer tells me that you really fit this description, very closely. And I said, I understand from the poster, I said, I saw the same poster today. I understand that you do have the scar under the eye. And he said, well, yes, sir, I do. And I said, well, there's one of two things we can do. I said, yeah, you know where this is going. I said, you can come down to the station and we can fingerprint you. And then we can know for sure, rule it out. I said, the other option is you can drop your trousers and show the officer that you do not have that tattoo. There was a moment of silence. And then from the other end, listen, this is the honest truth. From the other end, this is what he said. He said, Cooke. He had been, according to the policeman and the pastor, he had been pretty riled. He had been kind of upset because what Doug was thinking is whoever had the rental car before him. And so, but then the poster, and he's just kind of not know. But when I said, the thing about you can, show the officer that you don't have the tattoo, and these were his exact words, he said, Cooke. He said, you are going to get it. And he was so mad that he didn't know what to say. So this is what he said. He said, I will I will be a cobra in the dark.